Good morning and welcome to this presentation by the Swedish Fund Selection Agency. My name is Viktor Ström and I work as Head of Communications at FTN. Today's presentation will be held by Erik Fransson, the Executive Director of the Swedish Fund Selection Agency. He will give you a brief overview of the history of FTN, the ongoing operations of FTN, and we'll also look into what's going to happen during the second half of 2024. We'll have some time to answer questions. I think the presentation will be briefly or something like 15 minutes. And after that, we'll have some time to answer your questions. You can submit questions through the chat function at any time, and we'll take it in the end. I'd also like to stress as a sort of a disclaimer that we always try to give you the latest available information. This means sometimes information might be subject to change. So things that we say today might be changed at a later moment. So always make sure to go to ftn.se, our webpage, and also subscribe to our newsletter. With that being said, I'd like to hand over to Erik Fransson.
Thank you, Viktor. Starting with a short background on the Swedish Fund Selection Agency. It's a state agency. We commenced operation almost exactly 2 years ago with a mandate to procure, monitor, and quality assure funds in the Swedish premium pension system. It also means that we will procure and invest approximately 100 billion euros of funds in the coming 3 years. It's a change. We're going from an open platform, an application-based system where we have approximately 500 funds today, to a guided procured platform. We don't really know how many funds we will end up with at the end of the day, but what we know is that it will only consist of procured funds of high quality with lower price and higher returns. At the end of the day, that means higher returns and higher pensions for our savers. We would like to start today by going back to our first procurement and some lessons learned from that process. The European equity funds actively managed, the funds being implemented on the platform today. It was announced almost a year ago, end of June. We received 35 tenders. 12 of those were qualified for the evaluation phase, which means that the difference between 35 and 12 didn't go forward in the process. They were not qualified, and that was due to some administrative errors from the fund management company side, and also due to that some tenders didn't live up to our mandatory requirements. We conducted 10 interviews, site visits, and the purpose of the site visit and the interviews is to make sure that what's being written in the tender complies with the reality. So that's a very important quality part of the process. 6 funds were awarded a contract and are now being implemented on the platform. The result, we went from 22 funds to 6. Overall sustainability requirements were raised, and the fees on average were lowered from 48 basis points to 21 basis points. So it's quite satisfactory. And also if you look at past performance, even though that's not a very important part of our process, we're looking for future return, not past performance. It's still satisfying to see that the universe of procured funds in the past has performed at least 100 basis points higher than the old universe, also with lower risk. Funds and fund managers that were awarded were a mix between some Swedish managers, but also 50% of the manager universe being selected came from outside Sweden as well. We don't focus on where the manager is coming from, and this is purely based on quality being quality in the searches and in the tenders. Key takeaways and improvements from the first search is that we are under a strict legal framework. We have our Swedish law, but we also have to comply with the European principles of public procurements, which means that everybody has to be treated equal. This means that there are limited possibility to adjust for errors in already submitted tenders. Therefore, it's very important for you to review all the mandatory requirements in the product specification and to make sure that you fulfill them as well. We also learned some things in the process. We found some improvements that we can and have done in our digital platform, e-Avroop. We are also committed to faster replies on your questions during the Q&A process. And we also made some changes in the coming searches and also the existing Nordic search when it comes to how the price criteria evaluation is being conducted. This is just an example coming from the Nordic Funds Active Search being out there. We have introduced a ceiling on the procured price of 45 basis points. That means that you can submit a higher price than 45 basis points. You can submit any price, but you will only receive 1 point for submitted prices above 45 basis points. Between 1 and 4 points on this evaluation criteria, there will be a scale, a sliding scale based on the tendered price. And again, please make sure that please be informed that 45 basis points is just an example in this case. We have a number of searches ongoing. There are 4 of them out there at the moment. They have already been announced and they have already passed their date for submitting tenders. These are procurements where you cannot submit tenders anymore. Deadline has passed. They are in the evaluation phase, and we expect a decision on awards when it comes to when it comes to the index categories in Q4 2024, and when it comes to the Nordic searches, small cap and large and mid cap, we expect that to be announced in Q1 2025. That was history. Let's look into the future and the rest of 2024. When it comes to searches that has not already been announced, we expect 3 searches to be announced during the remaining period of 2024. 2 of them has been communicated earlier, Swedish Equities Index and Swedish Equities Active Management. In the previous procurement plan for 2024, we had a category included called Global Fixed Income. That category has been postponed and being replaced by another category, Global Equities Active Management. And we expect to give notice for Global Equities Active Management to be given in Q4 2024. Going into Swedish equities has been earlier announced. We have received some questions on when notice will be given, and we have said after the summer. Some people have asked when is the summer over in Sweden, and Sweden is a long country, so it might differ a little bit, but end of August, early September is when we expect to give notice for the 2 Swedish categories. There will be 2 searches. If you participate in both, you need to you have to submit tenders in 2 searches to procurements. The category index is 6 PRX, and in this case, we don't expect to have a tracking error limit between category index and the fund's benchmark index. So it's not a mistake from our side. We've had that in the past in the European equity search, but in this search we don't expect to have that, but we're still looking for large and mid-cap companies, a strategy based on that when it comes to Swedish equity actively managed. Preliminary product specification have already been published on our website, ftn.se. Global equities, large category, Swedish kronor 193 billion. On our platform today, we have funds, global equity funds, being in two different batches when it comes from an information perspective. We have global equity funds, but we also have some global equity funds that has a regional bias or home bias. It could be home bias towards Sweden, overweight in Sweden, or a strategic overweight in some other region like Norway, for example. Both of those sort of groupings will be included in our search. And that's why we end up with such a big number, 190 billion Swedish. One procurement. In total, today, 45 global equity funds on the platform, 1 million savers, and we expect to give you notice for this procurement in Q4 2024. So in summary, the schedule for 2024 was slightly changed. We have the 4 existing searches on top. We talked about them, and there are 3 remaining to where you are able to submit your tenders. Swedish Equity Active Index and Global Equity Active, and none of them will be published notice before the summer as well. We're looking for comments, we're looking for questions, and if you have that, you're very welcome to send us an email, procurement@ftn.se. Some cases we're not able to give you an answer, but we can assure you that we will review and consider all incoming comments. At last, some general information and summary. You've heard this before. We are under a strict legal framework. We comply with the legal framework. We make sure that we comply with the legal framework, but it also gives some limitations on flexibility when it comes to changes and tenders that are not perfectly submitted. So make sure that you review the mandatory requirements and also the procurement specification. Make sure that all mandatory requirements are fulfilled and answer all the questions in the manner stated in the procurement guidelines. And maybe another important point is answer correctly. Don't answer based on what you intend to do in the future. And we want to know what you're doing today. And also a good piece of advice is to have relevant parts of your organization to review the answers in the tender. It might improve quality. And only include requested documents and formats that we're looking for in the tender. We also would like to maybe increase the number of dialogue meetings with fund companies and others in the fund industry. If you are interested in having a deeper dialogue with us when it comes to how you experience our searches, procurements, and the material, you're welcome to contact us. We will not give you any sort of information that is not available to everybody already, that is not publicly shared. And we will not be able to give you any information on ongoing procurements, but we're very much interested in hearing your views on what we can improve further when it comes to our procurements and the material and the processes we are using. And that's all from our side. Please submit your questions and we will try to answer as many as possible. Thank you.